we went out on patrol with some guys from second of the 325, and I think it was one of these guys, first sergeant. Like it looked like this guy was planning IDs by a dumpster. So he yelled at one of his privates, like, "Hey, this guy's planning ID. Take him out." So the private shot and killed the guy, and then we walked up to the dumpster, and he was just throwing out the trash. So like, fast forward a few weeks later, I'm doing gate guard at our fob. So sometimes they really didn't know what to do with the Avenger weapon system. So like sometimes they put us in the gate, and we had the flare monitor attached to the 50 cal. So like we just look down the road and pull gate guard. And we were pulling gate guard, and we see someone jump over the gate and start running out of the fob. We're like, who the hell was that? And come to find out, it was that guy that I saw killed. Like he just snapped. So it was the private who had killed that Iraqi weeks before. He just completely lost it and like left with no weapons and tried to run away. He eventually got caught, and I think they brought him back stateside. But just witnessing stuff like that just sticks with you.
Marshall in the middle.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's cool, dude. What's up? Sean Harris.
Hey, how's it going?
Man, it's going good, buddy. Good to see you.
Same here.
Look at you're all American. You got your jump wings on. I was just looking at your a couple of pictures on Facebook, man. You got German jump wings and stuff, man. You're a stud, man. Yeah,
Thanks.
You're a stud. What's going on in your world, man?
None. My kids keep me pretty active and tired. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. So
oh my gosh, what are their names?
Just running around after those little guys. I'm pretty tired.
What are their names?
My son's name is Remy, and my daughter's name is Marley.
Remy and Marley. Oh, that's neat how similar kind of they are in the feel.
Yeah.
I like that. My children are named names with a similar feel to them.
Oh, sorry, broke up a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. How is our connection pretty good? You look good, man. You look good. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. Sorry, it was cutting in and out. Let me just check the
It's saying that
Wi-Fi.
it's saying that you're having an amber connection, but it's clearing back up. We should be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So where are you from, Sean?
So I'm from Long Island, New York. Born and raised. I lived in Brooklyn for a while, and but I bought a house right before the pandemic hit. Thank God. So like timing was key on that. So I moved my family out here, and then my daughter was born this past February.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
Thanks.
So what year were you born?
1980.
Oh, that's a great year, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's a great year. So, what was growing up like? Did you grow up in the city? Were you in the country, or how did you walk to school? Did you ride the bus?
Rode the bus to school. I grew up in the suburbs. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked for Pan Am back in the 80s, and typical suburb life. Like my parents got me into sports early, so I was always in some type of after school activity, either baseball or basketball. So like I just played sports year round. I was always in like baseball or basketball tournaments, and I had a lot of kids on my block that were around the same age as me. So like it's kind of like the movie The Sandlot. Like all of us were just hanging out all the time, just playing sports, and you can tell who was at whose house because you just see a whole bunch of bikes, parked in the grass in front of the house.
Yeah, you grew up during that. It was a much simpler times in a way.
Yeah.
That you were the
Before the
last.
internet.
Yeah, you were the last of that group. My kids barely. My kids were born in 1990, so there was a 10-year span there that. Y'all roamed free. Cell phones weren't even thought of.
Nope. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't have a cell phone until after high school.
One of the interesting things I've noticed is that the more connected we are, the more scared we are of each other somehow. It's really weird.
Yeah, I see that. Especially now during the pandemic, you see that also.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So tell me some of the things that shaped you as a young guy. You know, you say you played sports. Did you have a coach? Did you have, what was it that drove you as a youngster?
I would say my family. My family just had a tremendous impact on me, especially both my grandfathers. So my grandfather on my dad's side was a World War II veteran, and my grandfather on my mom's side fought in the Korean War. And yeah, that kind of shaped me. And then my grandfather on my mother's side was also retired NYPD. So like I've always grew up with this fascination with the military and law enforcement, and ended up doing both when I got older. So
Oh wow. Are you in law enforcement now?
I am. I am. I've been with several agencies over the years. So when I got out the army, I was kind of lost, trying to find my way, and then I ended up. I was dating this girl at the time who was going to med school out in Arizona. So I tested out with the Tempe Police Department. So I was out. I was a police officer for Tempe for a little bit, and then I moved back to New York, and I was a deputy sheriff. Then I went from that to did an internship with the U.S. Marshals. I worked with Fish and Wildlife for 4 years, and now I'm currently with I'm an officer with Customs and Border Protection,
Awesome. Well,
and I
thanks
work
for
out of
your
JFK Airport.
Oh wow, thanks for your continued service.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
It's a dedicated guy that continues to serve in military. And look, look, law enforcement these days, and guys doing your kind of job. Look, there is no more thankless job than what you're doing, right? You're behind closed doors, nobody sees you. You know,
Yeah,
you look, you're probably nugging it out,
yeah.
and scared to miss something though. Scared to miss something, and So, but thanks for your service, buddy. I really appreciate
Thank
that,
you.
man. That's cool. That's cool. What did you think you would do when you were a kid? Did you think you were a Superman, or you were gonna be an astronaut, or tell me
I was
about
like most
that.
kids. I was like, typical kid. I was fascinated by dinosaurs, trucks, cars, uh, airplanes, like that sort of stuff. And I guess as a kid and a teenager, like I always, fantasized like being like, like a fighter pilot or something like that. And it never panned out that way. But that was my fantasy as a kid. Like that was
Yeah,
just something I always wanted to do.
I get it. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. I saw all these helicopters flying around Fort Rucker, Alabama, where I was at, and
Oh
that's
yeah,
what
that's
I
where they
wanted
train
to
all the
do.
pilots. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I get it. I get it. Yeah. So, uh, did you find that you were particularly good at one something and particularly not good at some other something in school or in sports or in anything in life? Did you find a strength and a weakness?
Um, I was really good with working with computers and electronics. So like that was kind of like my passion and also like my side hustle. So like growing up in the 90s, I would build like PC gaming machines. Like I go to Queens, buy the parts wholesale, and then like I would sell them to like, friends and family. And just always had an interest in like gaming. And but like I had no interest in like the academic side of things until like I was older. Like that was like one of the positive impacts like the military had on me. Like it just instills like this discipline you didn't know you had. And so like before the army, I just had no interest in school. Just always rather wanted to do stuff on my own terms and like learn at my own speed. But when I got out the military, I had a different focus, and I ended up using the GI Bill. So I used it for my associates, my bachelor's, and I have a master's degree in criminal justice. So
Hey, that's a great. That's a
yeah.
great man. I'm shaking my pom pom, man. I'm cheering for you. That's awesome, right? Yeah, that's cool. I'd use my GI Bill. I got educated through my GI Bill, and so I'm proud of
Oh, no.
that. But I didn't get my
Yeah.
master's degree. Woo, woo, woo! You're the man, dude. That's great. Hey, thanks for that. Because look, let me tell you something. You probably know as much as I do. You probably know as well as I do. There was some neat experiences about all the stuff you learned in school, and you can't. It's immeasurable, okay?
Yeah.
But it's not like suddenly because somebody gave you a piece of paper that you're any better as what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, there's people that are good at school and people that aren't so good at school, but that doesn't mean you're smart or not smart.
You have to find that balance
Yeah,
between like
yeah,
real life experience and getting your education.
yeah. That's for sure. That's for sure. So, tell me about the coolest computer you ever built, man.
Ooh, I'm be like dating myself. So I haven't built a computer in like probably like over 15 years.
Oh
But
wow. Okay, so during the
it-
same time frame, I was build. My dad and I would build computers together. We built a couple. That was when the Celeron processor had just come out and stuff.
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'll date along there with you. That's cool, man. I remember, so my dad and I built computers together when the Tandy 1000 first came out, and we had the option of getting one floppy disk drive or two floppy disk drives.
Oh
And there's
wow.
no hard drive.
No hard drive. Yeah.
Yeah, no hard drive. We got a 40 megabyte hard drive was our first hard drive, and we thought that was
That was
just
like cutting edge back
huge.
then. Yeah.
It was cutting
Yeah.
edge. Uh,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell me about the decision to join the army. Was mom scared? Little boy going off to
Yep.
war, or what was happening
Yep.
with that?
Yeah. It was so like I've always, like I told you about my grandfathers, and I've always had a fascination with the military history. Um, but I never really imagined myself joining. And it wasn't until 9/11 hit, being a native New Yorker, like, I was right there, and lost one of my friends, um, and it was just horrible. I had a lot of friends who barely made it out of the city. I was supposed to be in the city to visit one of my friends at John Jay College in Manhattan, but I overslept and woke up to the news of all death and devastation. Um, yeah, it was a very unique and scary experience, and that, like, you kind of feel like hopeless, like you just like, all right, I need to do something, I want to do something. And yeah, I was like, all right, I'm joining the military. And at the same time, I think Band of Brothers was out on HBO, like that just came out. um I think Black Hawk Down was in the movie theater like a month after 9/11 happened. So like me and a lot of people my age at the time, we were like, all right, we got to do something. So that's how I ended up. I was like, all right, you know what? I want to be a paratrooper. I'm afraid of heights, but I'm like, I'm gonna put my fear aside, and I'm gonna sign up and do this.
All right,
And
that's cool.
yeah, my mom was definitely afraid. She did not want me to go at all. But now, like, she's extremely proud of my service. But at the time, yeah, she's like any other mom, like, worried about her son.
Oh yeah,
So
oh yeah. I mean, could you listen? Can you imagine the day that your son or daughter decides to go march off to war for some country? Hopefully it's the United States of America, but
yeah,
it's
yeah,
look, it's weird to think what could happen in 20 years, and just the
yeah,
thought of our offspring going
yeah.
off to war. Look, after I've been to war, I'm going to tell you, you're going to see me like actively campaigning against not going to war ever again. Like, whoa, whoa, what are we doing? Why can't we talk about this, right?
And at that age, like I joined when I was 22, and I turned 23 in Iraq. And I saw a lot of bad stuff over there. I deployed in 2003, so that's when everything was brand new to everybody, like the
Oh,
IEDs and everything.
wow.
Um, But the impact of everything didn't really hit me until like I got home. And one of the paratroopers who died on a deployment, I didn't know him personally, but I remember like they had a funeral over the weekend, and I was walking with my friends from the barracks to the DFAC to get something to eat, and I saw the funeral, and it was a young black paratrooper who passed away, and I just saw his mother standing there wailing, and like she looked like my mom, and like that's when it like really hit close to home for me. I'm like, oh man, like that could have been me. So yeah, so like I have those thoughts when like people come over, like they come into my basement, my man cave, they see all my stuff on the wall, and they're like, oh, like what do you think this, like what type of impact do you think this is going to have on your kids? And I told them like just like my grandfathers sat me down and explained, like they didn't sugarcoat anything. They told me what to expect and just gave me all the nitty gritty, all the dirty grimy details. And I do the same thing for my kids. Like I'm not going to be like a recruiter and be like it's all sunshine and rainbows. Like just just be realistic with them, and if that's the route they want to go, like I'll support anything they do 100%.
Isn't it easy to be real with our children these days? It doesn't it
Yeah.
doesn't this world has got so much crap going on.
Yeah.
You gotta somehow be willing to talk to your children about what's happening to help filter it, because otherwise they get all confused. And if mom and dad's
Yeah.
all scared and ranting,
Yeah. Especially with like social media and news outlets and all of this stuff, like it's really hard to get the truth. So you have to speak to your kids and share your personal life experiences with them. Yeah, I think that's really important.
so tell me about basic and AIT and the recruiting process and any of those stories. Did were you a good soldier? Did you fail the
Oh yeah,
PO
I was
test?
pretty.
Did you?
No. I was pretty squared away. So like I played sports growing up, but I had asthma. So like I lied to the recruiter and said I didn't have asthma just so I can just so I could join. But I was like recruiter's dream. Like I just walked in, I was like, you don't have to pitch me anything. Like give me airborne in my contract. Like I first tried to go infantry, but they didn't have any slots. So I was like, do you have anything in combat arms? And they're like, oh, we have 14 Sierra, Avenger crew member. And, you get to shoot Stinger missiles. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, as long as I get airborne in my contract, like, I'll do it. So, I signed up for that. Went to basic in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which I hated being in Oklahoma. Like, I felt like the weather, like, literally changed every day. Like, it was coming from New York, like, I felt like a fish out of water. And then, so I went to basic in October, left during the winter. But this guy, I forgot his name, but like he bunked right next to me. And like we're in the dead of winter, and this guy had a brown recluse spider in his uniform that he didn't know about. And it bit him up pretty good, and they tried to chapter him out of basic training. And like me being from New York, I had no idea what a brown recluse was. So, being in basic training, no one wants to go to sick call. So he tried to like tough it out for 3 days, and then the pain became unbearable. And so that was my lasting memory of Fort Sill. That, and I think for our final FTX, we had to sleep out in the field, and it was -5 degrees. And we had to try and dig a little foxhole, and the ground was like concrete, so I couldn't dig my little foxhole. And then one of the drill sergeants like threw one of those fake hand grenades like during the FTX, but it ended up causing like a forest fire. So it was just pretty surreal. So like I'm freezing, it's -5 degrees, but in the distance you just see this huge raging fire while you're freezing. So
Oh no.
basic was interesting. And I went to AIT at Fort Bliss in El Paso, and being young, I had no idea what AIT was. And, my recruiter lied to me. He was like, oh, once you finish basic training, you're never going to see another drill sergeant again. And AIT is going to be like college. As soon as I got off the plane at AIT, in El Paso, I was greeted by a drill sergeant. So.
Oh, wow. That's great.
But, being at the elevation, the high elevation in El Paso helped me out tremendously when I went to airborne school. So when I went to airborne school, like I looked like a track star. Like you would have never known like I ever had asthma. Like I had no issues whatsoever. So that was the one cool part about being in El Paso before going to Fort Benning.
Amen. Amen. I didn't think about that, but yeah, I guess I did. I didn't have any problems in airborne school, but I came right from Bliss to Benning. How about that? How about that? So what was it? So what was it about jumping that got you so excited about wanting to be a paratrooper?
I don't know. I love the history of the unit. Like I love the history, everything that happened in World War II. I love the high standards that they hold themselves to. Whether it was wearing a maroon beret or your jump boots had to be highly spit shined. And
so did you know about all that stuff when before you joined?
I did. I started doing my research before I joined on that, and I was like, oh, this is something I would like to do. And it shows, like, especially once you get to brag and you're there for a while and you get a chance to interact with other units, you see, like, it's like being airborne is like a brotherhood, and your NCOs hold you to a high standard, your officers hold you to a high standard, and your uniforms, whether it's Monday morning at the motor pool or like you're wearing your Class A somewhere, like your uniform has to be really squared away. And when you work with other units, you see that they're not held to the same high standard, and it really shows. So like I think being an 82nd, like you take pride in like your appearance and your unit. So
I totally agree. I totally agree. There's just something about being airborne that it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain.
I loved it. When you're young, when you're in it, you're like, oh, like you always have those days like, wow, this sucks. But now as you're older, you look back on it, you're like, wow, those are like the best years of my life.
So what do you remember about jump school?
Jump school. I remember my very first day at jump school. Like the day starts off with the black hat was asking if anyone needs to go to sick call. It's like a few people around me, maybe like out of the whole group, like 20-25 people went to the back. And before we started PT, and they were like, all right, is this everyone who needs to go to jump school? And they're like, yes, Sergeant. And the black hat was like, good, I want you guys to go back to the barracks, pack your stuff and get the F out of here. We don't want your weak butts here at airborne school. And that was like before we did PT or anything. That was the very first day. So I just saw 25 people get kicked out before we get started. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot different from basic. This is a lot different from AIT. And I'm like, all right, like, let's do this. Let's, this is what I signed up for. I just want to get through this. I had, one of my instructors, I forgot his name, but he's an old timer. He was triple stack, SF, Ranger Airborne. And he went through everything. Like he was in Grenada, he was in Panama. And like I reminded him of someone that he knew. So like he was really hard on me like the first week. So I remember like the first week they make you do like 10 pull-ups. And I think I was like third in line. So I got up there and he's like, when you get up there, because they had like a little step you had to walk up. So I could get up on the steps, and once you walk up the steps, you get on the pull-up bar, you hang and you bang out your pull-ups. So I did my 10 pull-ups, and then I'm hanging, waiting for them to tell me to drop so I can go to the next station. and he was like, I didn't tell you to start airborne. So you do 10 pull-ups on my count. So, and like, I knew I didn't want to fail anything. So I ended up doing 20 pull-ups, and thank God I was in great shape, coming straight from AIT. But I just remembered, I'm like, wow, like this really sucks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of my lasting memories from airborne school. That and my first jump, of course. Everyone remembers that first jump. So I was, it was the number 2 jumper, and I just looked terrified. And the instructor looked at me, and then he's like, "Well, airborne, like this is what you signed up for." He's like, "If it's your time to die, it's your time to die. Wouldn't you rather die doing this than walking across the street getting hit by a car?" And like this is all he kept talking about. So like I was like, at this point, I was just ready for the green light to come on and jump. I was like, I'm tired of listening to this guy. Like I'm ready to just do this now. So that was my first jump.
He's playing head games with you.
Yep.
Oh, that's
that. And they do the classic pranks, like Tower Week. In the second week, they rig up because they oh, I'm sorry, for the 250-foot tower. They put the dummy in the chute, like the mannequin, and they release it to show you how the machine works. But they rig it up with a malfunction on purpose to scare all the students. So that I remember that as well. So.
Oh yeah. So you got to brag and third of the fourth when we were still part of the 82nd Airborne Division, didn't you?
Yeah. Back in 2002.
Oh wow! Yep. Tell me about becoming a member of the Sky Strikers.
It was it was an interesting experience. Oh, I'm sorry. It was spring of 2003. That's when I finished airborne school. It was funny. I remember being at reception, and when you're the new guy at reception, everyone else drives by and they're screaming "Cherry,"
right?
But from a distance, we couldn't make out what they were saying, so we thought all these people driving by looking for someone named Jerry.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, who's this Jerry fellow? And then we got closer, like, oh, they're calling us cherries. Yeah, it was a unique experience. Like, my first week there after reception, like I did a jump. And I remember the first jump, because airborne school, they make you do that little shuffle out the door. When you get to division, you just walk out. So I like, hey, we don't do that here. Like, you're not in airborne school. Like, and then I remember I went through some trees on my first jump in division, and I made it through the tree, but like I had one of my friends had to help me pull my chute out of the tree branches. Then my second jump, I landed on a fire ant hill at nighttime. That's when I learned about fire ants in Fort Bragg.
They will tear you up, buddy.
They did.
You up.
Especially at nighttime when you can't see them. I'm like, okay, this sucks.
Oh wow, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So how many jumps did you end up with?
Oh, I think maybe 37, like 37, 38. I was only there for 3 years, so
that's a lot of jumps.
Yeah, but before we deployed, we were training a lot, and then after we came back from our deployment, because we came back from deployment in February 2004, we were just training nonstop. So they sent a few people back out, to post security for the elections in Iraq, and the division was just really, really busy in those days, and it was hard on everyone. Like, some of the training exercise you did, felt harder than stuff you actually did in combat. You're just working long hours. It was tough, and the way of life was. I mean, I liked working in high speed environments. At the time, I was young. I wasn't married. Didn't have any kids. So for me, it was fine. But like, the older guys who were married and had kids, like it was really hard on them, like really hard. Like, divorce rate skyrocketed at that time, and it was a tough time. You saw a lot of people struggling.
Oh yeah. So tell me about deploying to war.
Our deployment sucked. There's no sugarcoating that. As a young paratrooper, like you're excited, like you're like, all right, this is what I wanted to do. Like I want to fight for my country. But the deployment was hard. So like I deployed in September 2003. We had some people from 3480A who deployed months before we did. So like we kind of came in the second half of that deployment. And I went to Kuwait, and then from Kuwait we drove to Al Taqaddum airfield. So I think we were out there for like a month or so, and then we got the mission to go to Baghdad, and Bravo Battery was tasked with doing convoy security and just looking for IEDs on highways 5 and 8, and we got rocked pretty hard with IEDs, and my unit particularly, we didn't get an armored vehicle until Sergeant Kraft got hit. He got hit pretty bad. He ended up losing. He ended up losing one of his legs, and his leg that's still attached was pretty bad too. But I think they didn't take that one though. But it took for him getting hit for us to get armored vehicles, and we got 2 armored vehicles for entire Bravo battery. So like we just kept rotating it. So I was in first platoon. So first platoon would do like, I think we worked 12 hours on, and then we had 24 hours off, and then all 3 platoons rotated that cycle. And the guys in headquarters just fixed our vehicles. So those guys like really got the short end of the stick because they were always busy trying to like patch our stuff up. But yeah, seen some crazy stuff, had a lot of close calls. My platoon alone, well, I forgot how many Purple Hearts we have in our platoon alone, but yeah, our platoon got hit pretty hard with IEDs. So luckily, everyone came back home alive, but it was rough. It was really rough.
Tell me about that time. Look, I can only imagine that when your mission is to go looking for IEDs, you're gonna go find some IEDs. I mean, and some you're not gonna see in time, right?
Yeah, it was just surreal because here I am. I'm in air defense artillery. There's no air threats in Iraq. I don't even think we brought our Stingers with us over there. I don't think so. Yeah, and we're doing this mission we weren't really trained for in soft-skinned vehicles, and Iraq was just such a weird, surreal place. I remember one of the routes that we patrolled, like there was like a dead dog. It was like roadkill, and like it probably just happened before I went on patrol. But like throughout the entire course of my deployment, like every single day I went out, I would see this dog like slowly decay more and more, and like that was kind of symbolic of like how we all felt during our deployment with all the stuff that we've seen. My first day being out on the street in Baghdad, I forgot which one of my NCOs I was with. Might have been my platoon sergeant at the time, but this woman, she walked up to us with her life savings in her hand, and she had a black eye and a bloody nose, and she's like trying to push the money into my chest, and I couldn't understand what she's saying. So like I asked the translator to translate, and my translator was like, her husband's beating her, every single night, and she wants, it's like she's offering us money to kill her husband so that her and her kids would be safe. And talking to the translator until like, hey, we're not in the murdering business. Like it's not what we're here to do. It was just so weird. Like no amount of training back stateside could prepare you for something like that. Like I couldn't imagine being in that scenario. It's just weird. I've seen Iraqi civilian get hit by a car, and like basically like it looks like his brains are hanging halfway out of his head, and the police come take his wallet, take his shoes and just leave him in the street. And I'm like, where am I? Like, what? Like this doesn't even seem real. Um, yeah, it's just crazy. It's just really crazy over there.
When you had the tough times, was there something, spiritual that you looked to? Was there a force that kept you going inside? Was there something that emanated, goodness out of you somehow?
Honestly, no. Like going into my deployment, I was very religious, very spiritual. Um, all the stuff I was witnessing, that was the only time in my life where I lost faith. Like I honestly lost faith. And then I didn't get my faith back until the end of my deployment. So I was like for about a month or so, I was put on QRF, was on the Quick Reaction Force. And I remember driving out onto one of the highways and like those Jersey barriers. So the engineers lined the side of the road with the Jersey barriers. Where we were, the IDs were so bad, they double stacked. So it was like two Jersey barriers on the right side of the road. And I was driving, and this ID detonated right in front of me and blew two Jersey barriers clear across the highway in front of me. And that was the closest I've ever come to being hit by an IED. A lot of my friends in my platoon weren't as fortunate, but that restored faith in me. I'm like, oh man, like that could have been me. One of my other friends who got hit by an IED, I was driving in front of them, and then they got hit, so I had to circle back around to pull security and make sure that they were okay. And I remember one of my friends, screaming at me like, "Hey, look down at your foot." And I looked down at my foot. I was standing in a pool of blood and had this guy's nose like right by my foot. So like one of the innocent Iraqi bystanders who's happened to be driving next to my friends, got hit, and he didn't make it. So you see stuff like that. I was there when we went out on patrol with some guys from 2nd of the 325, and I think it was one of these guys, first sergeant. Like it looked like this guy was planting IEDs by a dumpster. So he yelled at one of his privates like, "Hey, this guy's planting IED, take him out." So the private shot and killed the guy, and we walked up to the dumpster. He was just throwing out the trash. So like, fast forward a few weeks later, I'm doing gate guard at our fob. So sometimes they didn't know what to do with the Avenger weapon system. So like sometimes they put us in the gate, and we had the flare monitor attached to the 50 cal. So like we just look down the road and pull gate guard. And we were pulling gate guard, and we see someone jump over the gate and start running out of the fob. We're like, who the hell was that? And come to find out, it was that guy that I saw killed. Like he just snapped. So it was the private who had killed that Iraqi weeks before. He just completely lost it and like left with no weapons and tried to run away. He eventually got caught, and I think they brought him back stateside. But just witnessing stuff like that just sticks with you. I remember working also at my fob because we had this abandoned it's like trucking companies like Scania or something. But we were staying in like the garage bays, kind of use that as like a makeshift barracks. But I was pulling gate guard there during Thanksgiving, and some guy was driving through town. He had a mortar mounted on the back of his pickup truck and was just shooting mortars at our fob. But he kept driving away, so it was like hard, for whoever's working security in the tower to shoot back at him. But I remember a little kid was maybe like 100, 200 feet in front of me playing with a soccer ball, and he got hit by a mortar, like right in front of me, right on Thanksgiving, or maybe it was like 2 days before Thanksgiving. And I'm not sure if he lived or not, but he looked like he was in pretty bad shape. So stuff like that just stays with you, really does.
Yeah,
So I couldn't get out
amen.
of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. If you had to tell, your children or some loved one about your service and characterizing it, and would you encourage someone to kind of walk a similar path that you've walked?
I think it's important for people to find their own way. So like if they, like if my son is inspired by what I did in the past and he wants to go that route, like I'm going to try and, share all my experiences with him, pass on my wisdom to him so that he really has a clear understanding about what he's getting himself into. Like the conflicts that, this current generation is fighting. Like it's not like, the conflicts my grandfathers fought in where they're wearing one uniform and other guys are wearing another uniform. Like, then these guys aren't wearing uniforms. Like they'll shoot at you and blend right back into the general population. Um, it's just different. Like it's so yeah, I would just try to like give him a crystal clear picture as to what to expect, and so that way he can make like an informed decision. I think that's the best thing I can do. But I would never try to encourage someone to walk the same path that I did, because be honest, like I barely survived walking my own path, so I wouldn't. You, someone will have to choose to do that for themselves.
Amen. Amen. So, so tell me, what kind of car are you? A car guy at all?
I am a car guy.
What's
Growing
your
up, like I'm
brand?
into all types of cars, like American cars, Japanese, German. But in the late 2000s, the late 90s, early 2000s, like me and other kids my age at the time were, sucked in with like, Fast and the Furious and stuff. So like I had my little uh, Japanese import car. I had a 1993 Mazda RX-7. It's like twin turbo.
Yeah, that rotary
Yeah.
engine. Yeah, that's
Yep.
cool.
But now I'm, my car's a little sporty now, but it's nothing like I was driving back in the day. So I have like a Ford Focus RS now, but I'm gonna have to do the typical suburban dad thing. As my kids get older, I'm gonna have to get an SUV.
There you go.
So
Get that minivan, Dad. Get that
yeah, yeah,
minivan.
yeah. I'm gonna
Uh,
need the space.
well, it's interesting. Look, it's not going to be too much longer. We're going to be talking about whether we're still driving or not because we're going to buy auto driving cars, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not going to be too long. We're gonna say,
Oh,
look, I'm serious. I'm thinking about making sure that my mother has a car that drives itself because she only goes a few places,
yeah,
and boy, imagine the mobility of mom just getting in the car and
yeah.
pressing the button saying, "Take me to Aunt Judy's," that'd be
Yeah,
cool.
yep. That's exactly where we're heading.
It
That
is.
and electric car. Everything's gonna be electric.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Um, tell me about the end of your service. You deployed one time, is that right?
only deployed one time. Um, just so happens I just lucked out with the training schedule. But I could have easily got deployed another two times for like the elections that they were having. So they ended up kind of just randomly picking people from 3-4 ADA and throughout the division to go pull security for these elections. But like I think we did a training exercise where we drove down Savannah, Georgia. Um, we jumped into uh, we jumped by Fort Bliss. So we did the in-flight rigging and jumped out over there. So like we were training all over the place. So
That's
that
great.
the tempo was pretty high. So I just happened to be training and didn't get picked to do those missions. But if I stayed in, because I know my unit got deployed again in 2007. So they got deployed when I was in the police academy in Arizona. So I remember, after I got off of work from the police academy, calling all my friends, wishing them a safe deployment. Um, that could have easily been me if I stayed in. So
Right. So you were Were you in the were you in the division area, in the division barracks, Charlie 9349?
I was, yeah, I was in, because I heard they knocked the building down now.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I've been, so like I haven't been by where our buildings used to be, but so my wife is a marathon runner, and her cousin's a sergeant major in third group down there at Fort Bragg. So I went down there. Last time I was at Bragg was like maybe 3 years ago, and she ran that. I guess she had the marathon down there at Fort Bragg. So she ran a marathon there, and so I kind of like tried to show her around, and I took her to the Airborne Museum, but I didn't have a chance to go by where the old barracks was. That would have been cool.
Yeah, they're all torn down now. They're not around anymore. Yeah, yeah. So who were the leaders, and tell me about some of the personalities that you were in the unit with.
Um, let's see. Uh, so my platoon leader was John Kirchkechner, who's now like I think he's lieutenant colonel now of 3488. So it's really
Yeah.
cool to see that journey. And when I first got to Bravo Battery, Sergeant Rushbrook was my platoon sergeant, and now so just to see where those guys their careers has gone. I haven't talked to Rushbrook since probably like 2004 2005, but I talked to Kirchkechner on Facebook. We keep in touch and we message each other. He actually helped me out a few months ago because I never received my combat action badge for my deployment. So he helped me square my paperwork away for that, and finally got my award for that, which is awesome. So yeah,
Yay.
he's an awesome guy. He's an awesome leader. Um, yeah, I would even to this day, like if World War III broke out, and like if I was able to pick a commander, I would pick him. Like he's awesome. So,
That's great. That's great. Tell me who else was around during that time. Do you remember?
Sergeant Kraft was my mentor. Um, I was really close with him. He kind of took me under my wing when I first got to the unit. Showed me the ropes, and I was devastated when he got hit by an IED.
Tell me about that day. Do you remember that day and where you were and what was going on?
Oh yeah, well, we were supposed to be in that truck. It was me, Hackworth, who actually just retired. I think last week he just retired. It was me, Hackworth, and Diesel. We were supposed to be in that truck, and then we got pulled for the QRF mission. So I think he ended up Sergeant Kraft, and I forgot who else was in the truck with him. And he was sitting in the passenger side, and he was always the most cautious when we were out on patrol. Like he was really like always looked on the side of the road, looked for piles of trash. He was as cautious as you can be, and it still ended up getting hit. And I think so. I think that in the Humvees, the battery is underneath the seat in the passenger side, and this, the shrapnel from the IED went straight through the battery and cut straight through his leg. And Tyndall, one of the guys in my unit, I think he applied the tourniquet. I was late coming up to the scene because I was on QRF. So I remember they tried to airlift him out of there, but they were denied. Like they weren't going to land the helicopter there, so they ended up having to drive him out of the hot zone, and they ended up. I think they took him to they ended up taking him to the hospital out there in Baghdad, and then they flew him out. I think overnight to Germany to get worked on. So I think like a month later, he was able to call us, and like the chaplain gave us like a satellite phone. We were able to talk to him, but that hit us like really hard. And my first sergeant Joseph, he knew how close I was with him. So I remember him pulling me aside that night and just sitting with me and talking to me, asking if I was okay. Just checking on my mental state. And yeah, that was rough. But we had several people that got hurt pretty bad during our deployment. I know Sergeant G in Second Platoon, he got hurt pretty bad too. But luckily both those guys, they recovered. think Sergeant G is like a police officer now. Like I stay in touch with him on Facebook and Instagram, so he's doing really well for himself. But yeah, that deployment was rough. It was really tough. I had guys in my unit. I'm sorry.
That was the wild, wild west back then, man. Y'all were not equipped to doing what you were doing, but it's also a thing of put me in coach kind of thing. It's like you can't deploy me to war and then make me sit on the fob and do nothing. You know, I got to be able to contribute somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a tough thing about being an Avenger kind of guy back during those times, you know.
Yeah. It's just so weird, like, you know, after my deployment, just seeing the how training changed, like, you know, 5 or 6 years after my deployment for new guys coming into the military, they have like an IED simulator and stuff like that. And I'm like, my IED simulator was being in combat. Like it's I never had a simulator. I remember, you know, guys, you know, scavenging in junkyards trying to get scrap metal and welding them to the bottom of their trucks and putting sandbags in their trucks. Yeah, it was just crazy.
Anything you could do to help protect yourself and your buddies, it was a crazy time over there. Crazy time over there. And you never knew where the blast was going to come from, when it was going to come.
Ever.
And you're just on pins and needles. And it also didn't matter whether you were in the wire or out of the wire, because there was some attacks coming from inside the wire too. So that's tough times, man. Tough times back then, you know.
And that was actually like the week before he got hit. Like Sergeant Krabs, like every time we leave the fob, it's like we're literally rolling the dice. He used to say that all the time, and then, you know, shortly after he ended up getting hit. And so you kind of like, I mean, it sounds like cliche and it sounds like something you hear in like an old war movie, but like you kind of just, you know, accepted the fact that like, hey, I'm either going to die here or I'm going to get horribly wounded. So I'm basically just going to live every single day like it's my last day on earth. And what can I, like, you're not even thinking about yourself. You're just like, what can I do to keep my friends alive? And, you know, I had a lot of people, including myself, like we just embodied that. And you know, took no chances. So like I know the first guy in our unit with a confirmed kill was Scott Roosh. Like, you know, a guy drove through the checkpoint and he didn't hesitate. Like he took action because he was thinking about, you know, keeping his brothers alive. So he took out the driver. And yeah, it's just that's like one of the examples I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, you fight for your buddies. You're there because your family's a long way away, and they're just an idea. But your buddy's right there next to you, and that's who you're fighting for. Because, by golly, he better stay alive so he can walk his own ass out of there. Because you don't want to carry him.
There you go. Now with all that equipment on.
That's right. And you know, we were just learning about body armor and just trying to get all that sorted out, and it was hot over there, boy.
Yeah, which is funny because about the body armor, like I remember, like years after my deployment, I remember reading a newspaper article how like all the body armor from those years was like defective or something. Like there was like a massive recall on it or something. And I'm like, oh great, like
yeah.
It's just weird.
I was in the body armor industry for 10 years after I retired. I promise you guys were wearing good stuff, man. You're wearing good stuff.
Good.
Yeah. So, you know, tell me about how your time in service ended. What made you decide to get out? Was that the plan all the time?
You know, so I had a couple of friends who ended up going special forces, and that was something I really, really considered doing. Like I was like, man, like, you know, I've seen those guys in action. You know, selection was right down the street from where we lived. So, you know, some of my good friends ended up getting into group, but like I just felt burnt out at the time. And, you know, I was at the end of my enlistment and they wanted a 5-year commitment. Like if you wanted to try out, like at the time, you needed a 5-year commitment. And I just wanted to see the world. Like I just wanted to travel. I wanted to, go back to college and finish college, which I ended up doing. And I think one of the things that never really talked about it, but I know so we did that training exercise in El Paso. Like we jumped into El Paso, and they had like a little film crew. They filmed us jumping. That was like one of the worst jumps of my life, by the way, because we jumped in between like these mountain ranges, and like I hit the ground pretty hard. But there was a 82nd Airborne Division chapter out there, which is pretty cool. So I remember they bussed us there, have a few beers and like lunch and stuff. But I remember driving through the neighborhoods, like it was like a poor neighborhood that we drove through on the way there. And like my friends and I were like, man, like it looks like we're right back in Iraq. Like neighborhood looked like we were in Iraq. And that's when like the idea of going into law enforcement like dawned on me. I'm like, love serving my country. I'm like, I'm going halfway around the world to serve my country, where I can also serve stateside. I can be in law enforcement and so yeah, that's when I originally thought about being a police officer.
Oh wow, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. And look, I know that clubhouse well. I've signed the tiles on the roof
Nice.
in there. It's a wonderful place. There's a great
Yep.
chapter. Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me about becoming a police officer and going through the academy and all that stuff. How did that go? Did that right away after you got out?
I didn't do that right away. I got off the Army in October 2005, and I got hired right out the gate as like a finance manager at a Toyota dealership in on Long Island, and like the money was really good, but like I was miserable. I was working 6 days a week. You come from the 82nd where like you have all this camaraderie and like your coworkers are also like your family, and like being reintroduced back to the civilian world, like you see like nobody's family out here, and like it's like cutthroat and everyone's out to get theirs. And I was like, damn, like did I make a mistake? I should have just stayed in. I should have like signed the 5-year contract. So I kind of had to like find my way, and then like I eventually I moved out to Arizona in 2007, and that's when I became a cop with Tempe PD. And that was an interesting experience too, because like law enforcement tries, especially in training, they try to mimic, like they try to be like paramilitary, but it's not the same. So like the fitness standards weren't the same. So like I never struggled with any of that stuff. Like I thought it was easy. Like their PT test, you do push-ups, sit-ups, but it was like a 1.5 mile run. And like the run times were like ridiculous. It was nothing compared to what we were running at Bragg. And like I didn't think it was hard, but being a police officer was drastically different from serving in the military. So it was a whole different set of unique challenges. So my first week out of the police academy, I had a guy commit suicide in front of me. So he had robbed a bank in Chandler, which is like the next town over. And, my partner, who's also, he's in the 82nd, and he was in Panama back in the 80s. He was like, all right, we're following with the car chase, because this guy was in the car chase. And he was like, all right, I think he's probably going to get off on our exit. So we were at the exit between Tempe and Scottsdale. And, but the rules out there is they don't want, it's like a liability issue. So they really don't want you to drive really, really fast behind a suspect, because you have the helicopter will see where they're going, and you drive at a reasonable speed and get the suspect. Well, anyway, so they, sure enough, these guys get off in the exit in front of us, and you see the helicopter. So like I'm driving at a reasonable speed, and this guy, the suspect, just floors it. He ends up doing like 120 miles an hour. I didn't know that he was also on the phone with his girlfriend at the time, telling her, I love you, goodbye, this is it for me. And he drove his car head first into an oncoming car in the lane next to him, and both those guys died instantly. And the guy he ended up killing was a guy I had met like a week prior, because I told you I'm into sports cars, and this guy had a Toyota Supra, like the same type of Supra from the Fast and Furious movie. Like he had a 1994 Toyota Supra. It was white. It was like fully restored, immaculate, and ASU is in Tempe, and all the kids hang out by the bars on Mill Avenue, and that's where I saw that guy on Mill Avenue, and I was like, hey, nice car, man, blah blah blah. And then next week, this guy's dead. So the suspect just rammed him head on doing 120 miles an hour. I knew the suspect was dead anyway, but like when the firefighters come on scene, they ask you to go through the motions anyway to put the leads on their chest, and dashboard was like wrapped around this guy. So that was kind of like my introduction to being a cop. So
wow,
it was just drastically different.
So most cops have like 100 crazy stories of things that happen, and most of it's domestic stuff. It's the like what just happened, but tough stuff. Do you have stories, good news stories? Do you have any of those? Did you see any of those good things that happen at time? And you don't have to tell them. There's got to be good news stories out there, though, right?
Yeah, it's just so crazy that you you see so much bad. Like that. I mean, that's your job, like to respond to these calls. That it's just weird. Like you just rattle off all the bad stories, but you actually have to sit and think about like the good stories. So now that's what I'm doing now. I'm like trying to think of like some of the good stories.
So what job are you doing now? Tell me about your job now.
So right now I'm with Customs and Border Protection, and I work at JFK Airport, and I'm in a seized property unit. So like we deal with all the seizures that come to the airport. So all the weapons, all the drugs.
Hey, can you get my Leatherman back?
Oh yeah, I got you. I see that too. But it's you see some crazy stuff at the airport. And right before I got this job, I was with Fish and Wildlife, and I was in charge of all the evidence in New York. And but like I used to do joint operations with CBP, with HSI, Postal Police, and like you'll see stuff get smuggled through the mail all the time at like the International Mail Facility at the airport. And like this guy was smuggling in the mail like 5 baby king cobras, and he had them stuffed inside of Pringles potato chip cans. And thank God, like we found them, like because we run the packages through the X-ray machines, and one of the guys running the X-ray machine was like, "Oh, this doesn't look right," and ended up driving it to the Bronx Zoo instead of opening the box. And the guys at the Bronx Zoo was like, "Thank God you didn't open those Pringles cans, because you would have been that one of you guys probably would have died, because the baby snakes can't control the amount of venom they inject in a single bite. So like adults, they can manage how much venom that they shoot out, but the babies, when they bite you, they inject all the venom that they have. So like getting bit by them is worse than getting bit by an adult king cobra. And there's 5 of them. So
wow, that's crazy.
You see some crazy stuff.
Yeah. So is there stories or things that maybe you haven't told about that you'd like to tell? Remember, this is, the idea of this is for your loved ones. This is for your kids down the road. To catalog your stories and stuff. You're still such a young man. You've got so much life yet to live, but yet you're a hero, and you've stood there, and served your country in a time of need. And I appreciate that, man. That's really cool. Airborne, that's really awesome, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely proud of my service. I love the life lessons I picked up along the way and experience I have. And there are some stories like I still hold close to the vest. Like I just share it with some of my friends who I serve with, but out of respect for their privacy, like I won't be able to share some of the stuff that I've seen and witnessed. But yeah, I have seen a lot of interesting stuff, and some cool stuff like being in C-17 and they're doing the heavy drops, like they drop the ramp mid-flight while you're still strapped in, and you can see like the other C-17s flying behind you in formation. It's like stuff like that I know I'm never going to see again in life, and it's just surreal, like seeing stuff like that.
Amen. Amen. After I've been in some of them after the heavy drop goes out and the rollers, they just keep spinning for like 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So part of what we're doing, Sean, as this is, we're cataloging these stories and trying to make a slideshow and getting you a box and a coin and maybe one of these days, your kids will fight over it, as an heirloom, and it's just in telling old paratrooper stories, man. That's what it's all about. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me. I appreciate it. That's
thanks for reaching out to me. Like I really enjoy this. It's awesome. Like I don't really get a chance to talk about these stories often unless I run into some of my old buddies. But this is cool. Like this is a great thing that you're doing, and I look forward to like seeing your interviews with other people. Like it's.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. It's so cool. There's hundreds on the list now, and so we're up to interview 30 or 40 or something like that. So I haven't even taken the time to count all of them, but I just love it. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. When we get out of here, what I'd love to do is, did you ever make sergeant?
I was E4 promotable.
Oh man!
And so my my friend, I left. So I supposed to ETS in October, and I got out in September. I was still on leave. Like I just burned up all my leave. So my friends who were there in October got their stripes pinned on them. I didn't because I was at home. So like technically, yeah, I E5, but I never got the stripes pinned on me. So.
I love it. Well, so how about, could you call your squad to attention and then give a hand salute and say, Sergeant Harris signing out or Specialist Harris signing out, whatever you feel comfortable with?
Yeah, I can. I mean, left brag is specialist. I can just say Specialist Harris signing out.
There you go. There you go. So let's hear you call us to attention and then go ahead and say, Specialist Harris signing out.
Attention. Specialist Harris signing out.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Thanks, man. It's been a ball. I've enjoyed the heck out of it.
Same here. Thank you. Stay in touch. Like
I will. Yeah, I love it. That's really cool, man.
If I have any cool stuff to show you from work, I'll send some pictures your way.
Please do. I'd love it. Yeah. Please do. Yeah.
I have to clear with the boss first. Like if there's anything, I gotta follow regulations and protocols and stuff. But like stuff I'm allowed to show. Like if I come across something cool, like yeah. Totally.
I love it. Thanks, man.
All right, take care. Bye.
Marshall in the middle.